What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Jacked Ramsey Show. Danny Marang, Brandon Sprague, and the newest member of Jacked Ramsey's. You may have seen him on Twitter or Instagram. Dallas's little brother, ladies and gentlemen. A very, very sleepy Tanner the puppy.
Well, I'm very disappointed that it's not Sprague Marang. I thought that's where you were going to go with that.
It was thrown in there. Somebody threw your hat in the ring.
I saw that.
He's very tired. He's very sleepy right now. So, hey, Bear, can you come grab him? Yeah. Thank you.
The best part about this, guys, is Danny hates when his other dog Dallas does this during the pod, and now he's already grooming this one.
I'm grooming can you close the door so the other
doing it for the future pods when he turns
grooming
to Tanner and it's like, I freaking hate you. I remember that.
Yeah, well, right now he is just the sweetest thing ever. He has spent the entire time basically cuddling on my wife. He is already mommy's little boy. That is without without any hesitation at all. He's as sweet as can be. And for those wondering, how did this happen? Well, my wife walked by a pet store or a shelter, and I got a text with a picture, and I literally I was at physical therapy. I turned to my physical therapist, like, looks like I'm going to get a new puppy. I kind of joked, and then the next day I was at a chiropractor, and I got another picture, and then that was today. And I drove home from the chiropractor. On the way home is that particular shelter, and my wife is walking by. And I'm like, she's so
doomed.
Do you want to go by? And I was like, sure. I picked him up, and I'm like, I'm screwed.
Yep. You're not going to check out dogs and pick up a puppy and not get that puppy. That's just not happening.
No, that's how it goes. But it's been a little while. I had a few people text me, email, just in general, like, hey, when are you doing the next show? You know, we did the one, obviously, with Ricky. Brandon couldn't be here. He had some family stuff to take care of. How was the play?
The play was great. It was fantastic.
Your daughter was the Dalai Lama?
She was the Dalai Lama. And it was it was more, not so much a play, I guess. It was more like
it was living history, right?
Yeah, like a living history museum. Right. So, like, there was a combination of alive people, and then there was some people who had passed. Very interesting decisions from our school about who classified.
Who played who?
Well, but like, my daughter's the Dalai Lama. Somebody had in there like Jackie Robinson.
Okay.
And then there was The Rock.
The People's Champion.
And I thought, like, big cultural icon, wrestler, actor, tries to be rapper. Okay, but he needs to be in a living history museum.
Maui from Moana.
Maui from Moana, yeah, which I actually really would have enjoyed if somebody dressed as Maui and been like, wait, who are you? And he's like, The Rock. You're like, good costume,
man.
good costume.
I like it. But we did say we were going to take a little bit of a break just because the doldrums of the season beat us over the head, and between my hip surgery and the way the season kind of went, just kind of get some break, and then this is it. That now we are ramping up. This is how the content will be coming free and fast. Shout out to the content gods who gave us news today that Joe Cronin was officially named the full-time general manager, not president of basketball operations. There's room for growth there, Brandon.
Which is great. I like that they didn't just automatically anoint somebody all the power in the franchise the way they did the previous guy. Mm-hmm. And I know
he gave himself his own title, I believe, is how that actually went.
And I think it came, his third season?
Third or fourth season.
Fourth season, something like that. But I'm excited for it. I think there's a lot we can talk about with it because this morning on my radio show, I interviewed Ryan.
You had a former GM on the show this
general
morning.
manager and Ryan McDonough, who built this Suns team basically without Chris Paul. I said, isn't this unusual? We're a week away from the draft lottery, and this dude's still the interim general manager. He goes, yeah, it's very unusual.
A little weird.
But I haven't heard them looking around for anybody else. And I'd say 4 or 5 hours later, boom, there you go. Joe Cronin signs. I don't know if we want to dive into this a lot versus like talking about the LaVine stuff or how you want to balance it. But
we'll push to the LaVine stuff. I think this will kind of carry the day. Then we'll take a look a little bit more at the lottery. It's less than a week away.
I more wanted to pick your brain on Quick's article, who, you and I, we cite stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Quick is one of the preemptive, if not the preemptive beat writers.
He was preemptive beat writer.
Yes. Well, semi.
Maybe, kind of.
Maybe. I don't know really where that stands. And I'll let him announce that stuff or talk about it. But he has this he wrote a Cronin article on The Athletic. And man, I'd say the first like 5-6 graphs, it's not very flattering.
No.
And I wanted to kind of pick your brain on this specific graph, and it's a short one, but it says, for the Blazers to make this decision without measuring Cronin's plan against those of other sharp candidates is more than concerning. It's borderline malpractice.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I get it, but I'm also curious how many other people fall in line with this versus just going, okay, they finally took the interim tag off Joe. Now let Joe cook. How many people are not thinking about the way they did the process versus the people who are thinking about what the process will be now?
What have I always said? Process, process, process. The results will vary, but process matters. So on the process side of things, I agree with Jason. Not a great process. And even I said this, like, listen, I like Joe. I like the general idea of what he has said. A lot of that comes because I'm arrogant, and I think he thinks a little bit along the lines of what I've wanted to do for the last 5 years, which is strip it down, trade CJ McCollum, get bigger, longer, stronger, more athletic. So I'm going to side with that because of that. But at the same time, I've also said, hey, listen, if they go out there and Masai says I'm done in Toronto, or Eversley, who Jason does mention in the article, is a guy that you think you can land, I think you need to explore those things. And here's an interesting thing, and I thought it was interesting that Jason brought up Eversley in particular, because I mentioned that there's still a position above Joe, not just to make a joke about Neil Olshey, but because perhaps the Portland Trailblazers can bring Mark Eversley in as president of basketball operations, run a two-headed horse like the Chicago Bulls did with Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Eversley. You have Joe heavy on the basketball side, but with a great relationship with his coach, and Mark Eversley heavy on the relationship side, which is what you're seeing the best organizations in basketball do right now, and bring those two together, marry those two, and take everything you can from them. But I don't necessarily think it's going to happen. I do think Eversley is still under consideration, not only with the Trailblazers, but with the Charlotte Hornets and possibly one other organization. Because the way that they talked about things in their exit interviews made it all sound like very much Eversley was gone, was a foregone conclusion that he's out of there. But again, back to the whole process part of this. This is not great, but I also believe that that's on par with Jody Allen and Burkhold and the Vulcans and the Allen estate. I very much believe that this is where they can trim, not necessarily on the payroll side of things, but maybe on the personnel side of things. Joe's probably a little bit cheaper. Even if in the report, I believe, said 4 years was the deal.
Well, but it cited in the story the Vulcans and Allen don't give these guys
more than 3.
Right. So I'm wondering if this is a fourth option, like the 4th year is the option year of where the team wants to go after that. Yeah.
That's why I'm wondering. Again, Billups, was his a 5-year deal or a
5-year deal? He's got 4 years left. Him and
Joe
are lined up.
Lined up. That's I think that's kind of where they're going with this. So as much as it pertains to like ownership and selling the team off, like, does it matter? Maybe, but I also think it's something to keep in the back of your mind. But I don't think the process was great, but I think the end result was at least good enough. Like if you trust Joe Cronin to strip the roster down, you need to trust him at least for 18 months to try to do something with it, right?
Oh, no, I don't disagree with that. I did want to ask you quickly. I think it's an interesting position you're in here. Not to say it contradicts itself at all, but like the process isn't great, but you're happy with the result. And I think that's an interesting way of putting it. I don't know if I would,
which is not the way that I like to go about things ever.
Well, sure. I'm really curious where the percentage of Blazer fan is on this. Now, I cited this the minute they fired Neil and Joe was elevated. I said, is it not awkward, weird, and or questionable that they're allowing the interim guy, a guy they didn't even give this gig to right away when Neil got canned? Was it not odd or a little uncomfortable to know this guy is controlling where this team is going to go? Now, he made his moves, and there are a decent amount of Blazer fans that did not like some of those moves, especially once that Pelicans pick did not convey. But I said this in the beginning. I don't know if he's going to be good or bad. I think this is a big summer for him. I'm not telling you the trades were perfect, but I also think we way overvalued some of our assets. But I said it from the get-go. I thought it was a little odd that you were going to allow maybe the biggest offseason and biggest moment in this franchise's history.
Which is basically managing whether or not you were going to be able to do something around Damian Lillard.
You're giving that to the interim guy. You're not opening it up. Now, I like that Eversley was involved in this piece. I think it's important to cite what you did, that it hinted at Chicago's press day that, hey, this is probably over for him, or at least the idea is. Because if you can go from doing what you're doing under Arturis, you get to go now be Arturis with Portland, with Joe under it. And I think you're covering a lot of caveats there, right? Like, Chauncey cited the player relationship thing. You get to pair that with Eversley. Dame said he's going to be active. So now you have three heads, if that happens, that are actively in the ears and conversations with players or personnel. And then you've got Joe, who has already made some big moves, but he's a big salary cap guy. He's a financial guy. So it's like, how can Joe work his financial magic while if they go get an Eversley, while Eversley, Billups, and Dame do what they try to do and put pieces in place to bring in.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the position they're going to find themselves in is we made our bed, now we're going to sleep in it kind of a situation where...
Absolutely.
This is why when this first happened, and before they started really making trades, when I said, hey, guys, they're going to deal CJ. It's going to be for a package you're not going to like. Like the best player you're going to get back is Josh Hart, and you're hoping for Jackson Hayes. You aren't getting a Herb Jones. You aren't getting a Trey Murphy. Remember, we were talking about this like 3 weeks before the trade. I think it was December 23rd that I first brought it up because I had heard from folks in New Orleans what exactly was going on. And from that point on, I go, listen, this is going to happen, which is why I'm going to sit here and say, this is what it is. Take it or leave it. Be mad, be happy, whatever. But the new era is coming. I am holding out until August 1st. Before I make any judgments, because right now it's an incomplete. It's the same thing with Chauncey Billups as a coach. It's incomplete. I don't know what the hell he is, what he's going to do, because the roster didn't make sense. The vibes were dog shit. The organization itself was in a shitty place. Let's be honest. It wasn't like there wasn't anything there that was like, yeah, no, we're doing good. Whether it's Neil and the investigation behind him, Chris McGowan leaving, the transition to Root Sports, whether, more people are watching games or not, like it was different. There was a lot of things going on, not just on the basketball court, but within the organization. And you had to put all of that stuff together to kind of understand where the organization was and where they were trying to get to. And Joe was the guy basically tasked with steering that, along with Dwayne Hankins on the business side. And one of the things that has come forth really over the last 6 months or so is just the division between the business side and the basketball side. Like you have the basketball side at the practice facility, the business side down at one center court, and they didn't cooperate. They didn't interact. From what I understand over the last 4, 5, 6 months, that's happening now. Like that's not just a talking point. And it's kind of interesting when you start thinking about it, like, well, maybe things weren't great, because you want all those different parts of your organization to start making sense. And I think part of bridging that gap is having a GM who has experience within the organization and that's not just me saying that because it's my preference, because there's other GMs that are, on, like, if Eversley was the guy, I would be excited. I was genuinely, that's a guy I was like, yes, that's fine. Awesome. I would go with Eversley as GM at a heartbeat. But if you're going to bring in somebody, or you're going to keep somebody in, why not take the guy with 16 years who can bridge the gap and kind of bring everything together? And I think that stuff actually matters, as dumb as it sounds.
Well, and they still have an opportunity, I think, to your point, to bring Eversley in, right? So it still has an opportunity to make you feel maybe better than you do about Joe. Like I think with this franchise, they're in an interesting point. What they're going to do with Dame these next few years, can they convince him to just see this out, ride it out, take a couple lumps, and say, hey, when you're a little older, we're going to try to be far more competitive and maybe a real shot in the Western Conference playoff picture? Or do they know that their timeline is not very extended and they're seeing what they can do with this group? I don't know where Joe's going to go. I do think it does speak to Jody Allen. Look, again, Joe can be good, and this isn't meant to be a slight at him, though it might sound that way. Like, I don't think she took part in this. Like, to be 100% honest with you, I think Burt Cold or whoever, it was basically like, hey,
handle this.
We're giving Joe this job. And she was like, Joe who? Joe Cronin, the interim general manager? What's the interim general manager? Like, I think it's as simple as that for her. And maybe I'm a little off with that, but like that's kind of the vibe with this franchise right now. So you can make an easy argument and counter argument to everything we're saying and say, guys, that in itself is not a problem for a franchise. That is a problem.
And I wouldn't argue.
Yeah, but I would counter with there are a lot of owners that are super hands-on whose teams are absolutely trash. See the Sacramento Kings. So
who actually got at least half a decision right this week.
Well, they're still the Kangs. So
I still
Brown,
half a decision. They went with not Mark Jackson. Like
right.
I don't know if Mike Brown's the right guy, but they went with not Mark Jackson.
So we'll see. She doesn't ever leave me hopeful or happy, but maybe this is the move. And if you're going to let this guy blow it up and make pivotal decisions like that, you might as well see where this goes and ride that out a little bit.
Forrester said the Blazers aren't going to pay 2 front office people, which I can see not happening. They fired Olshey because they didn't want to pay him. No, they fired Olshey because they didn't want him around, and they fired him with cause, because they didn't want to pay him.
Yes, the cause part was the crucial part of it.
But they didn't want him around. There was a power struggle, folks. He lost.
Look, I don't know that guy personally. I don't like some of the moves he made in his profession. By all accounts, absolute jackass. So they moved on because he's a hard person to get along with.
Yes. And in my personal experience, not one little bit of care about what happened to him.
There's a lot of media members that share that sentiment.
Nope. Good go.
Right.
But now we wait. And the first, unfairly or not, however, whatever side you fall on, in less than a week, Brandon, he will be judged. Without making any moves, he will be judged as the NBA draft lottery takes place. We still don't know who is being sent. I think today we did. You think it's Joe?
Yeah, I do. I think it's important and maybe this is where
maybe that's part of why they did this was you can't send the interim GM.
Yeah, you can't send
to the draft lottery
GM. Damian Lillard's probably living the best goddamn life. And
Dame's been in Disneyland, and I believe he's traveling again next week.
He went to Dubai, didn't he? I
just
saw he
that was before, and then he went to Disneyland.
Okay, I couldn't tell which trip.
COVID restrictions are being lifted, and Dame is traveling. Let's just say that.
And Ant's still in contract negotiations. There's really no.
Yeah, he's technically not a Trailblazer.
Right. So you weren't going to do that in 7 days, even if you have an agreement kind of in place. Mm-hmm. So I think today was a bit of that, getting ahead of the draft lottery a week out, so you can send Joe Cronin and be like, hey, they can say new general manager officially named the Portland Trailblazers, Joe Cronin, and it's a good look for the team to send their guy.
Yeah, I think so. It would be kind of cool if they found a way to send a legend, because that's done well for teams recently. Ben Wallace, obviously, with the Pistons, and they sent Hakeem, I think, for the Rockets.
Oh, did they? They sent Hakeem?
Yeah.
Oh.
So, it's done well. Brandon Roy was obviously the rep when the Blazers won the number 1 overall pick with Greg Oden. When you send like guys who just kind of have that status, I tend to do well. I don't know.
It's
very
it's
dumb.
insane that it's a week from, like, by this time in a week we will know where they stand. We would have recorded a podcast already, and it's just nuts because I don't know how to feel, man. I'm still kind of numb to the whole situation. Like, I know it's rapidly approaching, and I know what we need this team to get, but I'm sitting here on pins and needles emotionally. Like, is this team going to get effed again? Or are they going to stay at 6?
Pick 8, 9. Yeah,
I get nervous about that stuff.
Hamad Al-Kabi says, Dame went to Dubai. I met him, made my day, even met Nurk. Nice. It's definitely cool when you get these guys get to get out of the country and get to kind of grow the community. It's always cool to see.
I hope you're ready for Joe to get the first blame of his life outside of the deals he negotiated when they land at like 7 and a million Blazer fans go, why'd you win those last 4 going into the All-Star break, Joe? Pulled the plug a little late on that tank, didn't you?
Yeah. Which in reality probably couldn't have pulled the plug on the tank because ownership wasn't going to allow that until the All-Star break. But neither here nor there. That's the big news of the day. Joe Cronin officially named general manager, signed to a 4-year deal. We don't know the exact parameters of it, but it is interesting. The Blazers right now, after basically having a Warren LeGarry coach and or GM for I think like 20-something straight years, have neither. And that leads me to the second part of this, in that their coach, their free agent center, and possibly a potential player in the Detroit Pistons that may have been linked to the Portland Trail Blazers, Jeremy Grant, all repped by Klutch Sports Agency. Also, Brandon happened to rep one Zach LaVine. Came out today that Brian Windhorst on the Hoop Collective podcast, which he loves to have aggregated, let me tell you.
I mean, it's got to be great for business, right? Even if the stuff that gets aggregated pisses you off, you got to be thinking, well, I just probably picked up another 45 listeners.
Yeah, it's great. Jake Fisher famously has named his podcast, Please Don't Aggregate This.
Please don't aggregate this.
Yeah. Great job. I mean, it's great SEO. But he mentioned the Portland Trailblazers as a potential landing spot for free agent Zach LaVine. Now, the Blazers have been linked to Zach LaVine in the past, as in like 3 years ago. But that was when he was making, I think, like $17 million. And there was a little bit of noise around potentially moving for him. I wanted to trade CJ for him then, and people said that CJ was better than Zach LaVine, and well, he wasn't. But neither here nor there. The Blazers would have to renounce their rights to Joe Ingles, which, okay, we can do that. Oh, also their rights to Jusuf Nurkic, which, damn, that hurts. You got to renounce the rights to
But okay.
Okay. But also the rights to Anfernee Simons.
No go.
Who, let's say you were not a believer in Anfernee Simons, such as myself.
Yeah. Right.
Do you think that Anfernee Simons could put up 65 to 70% of Zach LaVine?
Oh, could he put up the production, 65% of his production? Yeah, because I think LaVine was somewhere around like a 26, 27 point per game guy, shot 38% from 3.
High volume.
I mean, not a great defender, but
offensive production, like fill in the box score. Could
Yeah.
Anfernee Simons give you 18 and 3 on high volume?
Yes.
Okay.
I think he can.
He's gonna make half or more than Zach LaVine.
Well, but let me ask. So he's up, by the way, for the Blazers. If they were to dive into those, you mentioned the renouncing part. It'd be 4 years, 157. It's a lot of cash.
Big cash.
Look, I think I know your answer, but I'll ask you the question anyway. If you had to have Ant or LaVine next to Dame, who would you pick? Because I think before you answer this,
because LaVine's bigger, it makes more sense to put.
And that's where I would say, does the money matter at that point? Are you willing
yes, it does
to pay
because
more to get the slightly bigger, maybe better player? Well, probably better player now.
You can't do that though because you can't have 2 max contracts invested in guards.
I don't disagree with you, but we've seen Portland dive into these waters before.
That's not true. You can do it if you get a Chris Paul deal where he loads it so that also that your young rookies come up for extensions, both your rookie monsters and Mikal Bridges and DeAndre Ayton. are under rookie deals at a time when that's feasible. Sure, then you can do it. But with the way that Blazers are and without their rookies, it just doesn't make any sense for that to happen. But yeah, it's interesting how this is all coming about. Number one, we kind of come full circle to Mark Eversley in Chicago. It's just interesting how that all kind of works out. The other part of this is it's Klutch. Remind me again, how did Brian Windhorst break into NBA coverage?
LeBron James.
LeBron James. Did he cover LeBron James in high school?
Yes, he did. For the Akron Beacon Journal, I believe.
Yes, and then he moved to the Cleveland Plain Dealer, where he covered LeBron James in Cleveland. Yeah. And then down in Miami.
And then ESPN, who then moved him to Miami
yes.
once he made the decision.
And then back to Cleveland.
And then back to Cleveland, and he finally
then to LA.
Then to LA, but I think he established himself enough where he goes.
He didn't have to follow LeBron anymore.
And he lives in the Midwest in a random city that you'd never believe if I said it. You go, what? Brian Windhorst lives there, and he's like, yeah, I know it's random, but that's where he likes to live.
That's home for him. And McManaman had to go cover LeBron in Los Angeles.
He became the LA guy. Yeah.
Yes, but that is all to say, Windhorst is a Klutch guy. And it's okay to say that. That's just because Adrian Wojnarowski is not.
Woj has written so many scathing articles on LeBron, they will never have any.
And LeBron is petty, and they will never, ever, ever be a Klutch league to Woj. I say all of this to frame this up in a sense of this is Brian Windhorst carrying water for Klutch. And that's okay, because at the very top, this stuff doesn't leak unless agencies want it to leak. Mm-hmm. And this is applying pressure to Chicago in case they're a little leery of spending money after they fizzled out in the playoffs after having a bunch of injuries, whether it be Lonzo Ball or Patrick Williams or even LaVine. They've got injuries on the roster. They've got some things they need to figure out. They have a lot of money committed to DeMar, to LaVine, and to Vucevic, and they've got to be sitting there going, well, they were good. It was fun, but is it worth it? And they've got a young Reinsdorf who's been willing to open up the pocketbook significantly more than his dad. Garpax is not there, and is the goodwill good enough to get LaVine paid?
Right.
So, where are you landing on this lover's triangle of information sharing?
I mean, Wendy is one of my favorite guys in the NBA, so I don't want anything to sound like I'm taking a shot at him. The dude is plugged in. He was the one to have the Simmons to Brooklyn deal, not Woj. So should be noted, like he knows people. He knows people in the right places. Dude is legitimate when he shares news. That being said, this was one of those, like, I kind of chuckled. And then I basically said everything you said this morning. And it's because we've talked about this in the past, right?
Yeah.
It's the Klutch thing. It's Portland kind of being a mini Klutch team, one of the few in the NBA. And I think this is a way where Portland says, oh, you need us to leak some. You need us to be tied in. That you do that. Go ahead. There's not going to be nothing to it. And anytime you need that, you let us know, because you always want to be dialed in with one of the preemptive agencies in the association. So why not? If you're pissed at Chicago, leak a team of interest in desperation. Portland is one of those. That makes Chicago kind of do a double take of, wait, you're going to do what? And even if they don't buy it, they still have to take it seriously because this is that league.
Mm-hmm.
But I largely never bought it for all the reasons you named. And honestly, it also just doesn't make sense. That would be a very hard pivot out of Anfernee Simons, because you're not doing that unless you're getting rid of Anfernee Simons, which does not make any sense for this franchise and what they've said publicly. So I never really bought it outside of, it's a headline.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, it's going to be fun about this. The Blazers are going to go from not being linked in anything but bargain basement deals and very quietly. I think Joe Cronin is going to trade on the information market.
I mean, why would you not? What doesn't hurt you if you do that?
Because the previous management believed it was a fundamental flaw to do so. He threatened other organizations with leaks. Like, if you leak this, we will not do deals with you. And I think that's a very, very different shift from what we have seen in the past. And I think that's going to, for us, it makes it more fun. I like some speculation. Like, don't Danny Ainge me. Don't tie yourself to every freaking deal out there. There's an art to this. You don't need to sit here and say, oh, we were this close to getting in on that deal. Oh, we would have offered a better deal. Like Jordan Clarkson had a first-round pick for Norman Powell. Like, crap like that. for those wondering, that was something that was quietly, not so quietly, leaked by Danny Ainge and the Utah Jazz as far as pursuing Norman Powell. The team that did absolutely nothing at the trade deadline was also going to give up a first-round pick and Jordan Clarkson for Norman Powell. So say of that what you will. I say all of this as far as like carrying water for Klutch and being on board because you know what? The Portland Trailblazers still are after a guy in Jeremy Grant who's represented by Klutch, so why not do him some favors, folks?
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the things that we've hinted at a lot here, in particularly post New Orleans picks not conveying, Brandon, is this. The Blazers are not, let me speak directly in the camera. The Blazers are not giving up their own lottery pick for Jeremy Grant. That is not happening.
No, that would be a fireable offense.
Listen, for all of the people who are reacting the way they are right now to Joe Cronin, hashtag fire Cronin, all the nonsense.
That's a real hashtag?
Oh, God, yes.
Already?
Oh, yeah. No, they're the masochists are out there. But I would join them. I would join them in that cascade from the mountaintops if they did that.
Yeah, but go wear leather and get spanked. What are we doing here? You're really throwing that stuff out there as if you need to fire a guy that hasn't been able to.
That hasn't had a full year on the job.
Come on,
hell, literally, technically, this is his first day.
Ridiculous.
So, but I say all that the Blazers are not trading their lottery pick for Jeremy Grant. What they're hoping is that the secondary platter, the non-main course of the Milwaukee first-round pick, Keon Johnson and Eric Bledsoe's money, is enough to get it done. Well, you do enough for Klutch, and guess what Klutch can do for you? They can rattle.
We'll scratch yours.
They can rattle some cages. Because Detroit is in a position, Brandon, we've talked about this. We have talked about this, the idea of Klutch relationship with certain teams. Is Detroit a free agent destination?
No, not at all.
Very much the same as Portland.
No.
The other part of this is, did everything with Jeremy Grant and Klutch go well with Detroit? Do they have a good relationship?
It appears that Detroit and him are on a pretty good ground.
Wouldn't you want to maintain that?
Yes, I think teams like Portland and Detroit understand they're not a major player, so why would you try to sour on relationships?
Yeah, why burn that bridge when...
Right.
Listen, I am all for extracting the most value you can in a deal, but sometimes holding somebody's hand behind their back until they say uncle isn't the best idea. Just maybe a little, all right, you're good now.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you force it all the way, next time they're going to be pissed. And what happens when you no longer have the leverage and they're extracting from you? And word gets around. And if you start dicking people over left, right, and center, and I'm not saying you need to bend your back all the way. You just, more
you gotta
often
play the
than
game.
not,
You got to play the game. You got to play the game in this league.
And that is the thing that, again, I am not clinging to, but it is something that is very, very real in that the Pistons and Jeremy Grant can go, hey, this has been a good couple of years. We appreciate your time. Thank you for coming in a time when you were like a rising player in this league. You could have stayed in Denver, gotten the exact same money. You came to us because you wanted to be a feature guy. You trusted in our vision. Let's do you a solid. Let's get you to a place that you want to go to a team that makes sense, and we will get the most assets out of said deal at the same time. We will accomplish both our goals because we are a team trying to rebuild. They are not a team trying to compete for a title right now.
I will give you a theory, and it's just a theory, but the way this league operates, 2% I'd be shocked meter. Who's to say you don't have or had a conversation to get Jeremy to maneuver his way to Portland and make Keon, Bledsoe, and that future Milwaukee pick be enough? And the caveat is, yeah, we'll do that, but we're going to need you to really help our guy Zach get this payday and or decide where he wants to play, because it's either going to be a $200+ million contract or $157 million contract, but we want that guy to be the preemptive player or one of the preemptive players on a team. If you're Portland, there's no risk in just saying, okay, leak our dames with it, even though it's not going to matter. It's not going to change a thing. And I think that's an important factor here because you see teams do this all the time.
The best teams
carry the water, do the favors, because largely they get a benefit from it.
there's no reason the Blazers should sit this stuff out. And
No,
in the past they haven't.
That's
they have.
malpractice
Yes.
if they sit this out.
And that's in the past they have, because they've had a leadership that was not well liked,
Yeah.
that didn't have a ton of friends in the league, that only dealt with basically the same 5 or 6 GMs. And now I think you've got a guy, and everybody's like, well, who cares if he's nice? I do. Because you know what? Nice people are liked. Masai is a nice guy. He's well liked. Pat Riley is feared. But you know what? He's well liked.
Well, also to those people, like, who cares? Do you like dealing with assholes in society? Because I can tell you right
No.
now, I love when people are getting along and everybody's in a good mood and somebody's willing to, oh, you need help with that? Oh, am I too close? Or whatever the scenario
Yes.
is. I like dealing in that. So, like, why would you not want that in the league?
And for, again, all intents and purposes, Joe is that guy. And so it's a thing to build off of. So it's sorry, there's a lot of stuff in the chat.
No, yeah, that's fine.
Ahmad says, isn't that what we did with CJ when he asked for the Pelicans? So CJ didn't quite ask for the Pelicans. The Blazers had a couple teams, and by a couple I think it was 2, maybe 3.
Yep.
Teams basically who could take on CJ McCollum's contract without sending a bunch back to Portland.
Right.
And the Blazers took those teams to CJ and said, look, these are the packages we're looking at. You've been a good soldier for 9 years. Which of these kind of makes the most sense to you? And they tried to work with him there and put him in the best basketball situation. That, again, is a perfect example of, you could have just said, kiss my ass, CJ, and sent him to basketball Siberia for the most assets. But you don't do that because that's not how things work in this league. It's not 2K. You don't force trades.
Well, I think another part of this, I know this doesn't happen at every stop or team.
Mhm.
You know, I think apart for Joe, you mentioned at the top of the pod, Joe's been here for 16 years. Joe operates in loyalty and love. I think with guys like CJ, he has been dealing with CJ since they drafted him.
Yep.
CJ's here for damn near a decade. There was not a conceivable way, I think, for this team. They wanted to trade him. They wanted value back. I know it wasn't the value many people thought they'd get for him, but they examined the league and the landscape, and they said, crap team X and crap team Y are offering, I don't know, not as great a packages, if not very similar, maybe even a little tiny better, but we can send him to the team that he may actually want to play for, that might have a shot. Like, I just think there's a balancing act with that. And I'm not suggesting Joe turn down these amazing deals. I kind of think the opposite. I think these deals were not that good. And because we saw CJ and loved CJ so much, we assumed CJ was worth the stars and the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality was people wanted the stars and the moon back if they were to take CJ McCollum for a large portion of this league. So, you know, long story short, I think Joe understood that relationships matter in this league. Reputation matters in this league. I mean, Oklahoma City has done what, Danny? They've done next to nothing since they lost Kevin Durant and had to trade Paul George and Westbrook.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to be awful next year. And they have 1 million draft picks. It may not lead to anything. But the one thing you know that Oklahoma City controls, how the narrative is set about them. And when you talk to guys like Al Horford, Chris Paul, guys that had to go to
Took
these stuff,
care of those guys.
took care of those guys. Does that pay off in the long run? Maybe it doesn't. But at least it helps you in the battle of.
It did when Paul George was willing to re-sign there.
And they gave him everything. So, you know, reputation matters too in this stuff.
Playing the game matters. I saw Leslie Blanchard ask earlier if we were going to have a watch party for the draft lottery. Yes, 100%. It will be an open room, playback room. So I will post a link that day. I don't think you'll need to do a verification that day. I'll double check. But it will, we will have it open. It will not be a private room. It will not be a members only room. And we'll probably have a couple watch parties here for some games. We will have some watch parties here in the Western and Eastern Conference Finals, and then most likely in the finals as well. Once we know where, let me just frame it this way. If the Blazers are picking top 4, we will have a draft party on location somewhere. I have got 3 different locations that I am working with and tentatively okay, I'll know in a week kind of a
Right.
situation. So that will happen if that does happen. Also, I will be in Summer League if the Blazers get a top 4 pick. So we will have coverage all summer long and like all the stuff that we're going to do, but I can't set any of it up. I can't lock it in until we know. Everybody I've talked to, whether it's talking about Jeremy Grant or DeAndre Ayton or whoever, name a player the Blazers might move for OG Anunoby. Every single person that I have talked to, whether it be media, agent, exec, scout, 5 minutes into a conversation, let's see what happens in the lottery. Let's see what happens in the lottery, because everything hinges on Portland getting a top 4 pick as far as like making like earth-shattering moves.
Yeah. Yeah, and
So-
I think that goes to what I was saying. Is like I'm kind of numb to it because we know how important it is, but it's 7 days away. Like there's no point in freaking out. Hey, are they going to get to that top 4? Or are they going to be back from 6? Like there's no point in doing that right now. So
Sure there
I'm
is. Just
well, yeah. I mean, you could take the Portland position that we're screwed and
we're cursed. Okay.
we're the opposite of Matt Damon. Fortune will not favor the bold, and we'll get completely hosed here. But I'm going to choose to remain optimistic, and we'll see where I'm at a week from today.
Yeah, and that's the big takeaway overall from this stuff. We got a few minutes, so we'll just take a couple questions in here. I've seen a couple come through. God, you know what? I had a couple on Twitter too. I wanted to make sure I got to get to. God dang it! I got polluted with puppy tweets because obviously the little dog came through.
You asked for that.
I did ask for that. Well, I mean, I was sitting there doing the paperwork for the puppy, so that's kind of how it goes. But I've seen a lot of what would the Blazers do if they were in X situation. I think it was Leslie again asked the idea of like what happens if Ivy is the best player available. Do we move Ant or do we move Lillard? If Ivy's your best player available, they may take him, but I think that's one of the few instances where they'd move back.
I think they will absolutely lie, and even if they think he's the most talented player, they will take a different position.
You don't think they move back? You think they just take the
No.
next guy up?
Yeah, I mean, how easy is that to spin? If it's Ivy and
Or Murray?
If it's Murray or an Ivy and they're 1-2 on your board, it's so easy to lie about that and say, we thought he was the best player on the board.
Yeah, the only problem with that is you get stuck with a C.J. McCollum, Cody Zeller situation where C.J. McCollum is your number 1 player on your board and Cody Zeller's number 2.
I mean, yeah, maybe that's the case here, and I'm not telling you Ivy won't hit. I've had some people in college actually tell me they actually don't think he's going to be as good as people think he will be, but I mean, if you draft Ivy, you're just going to create more problems for yourself and the here and the now. And maybe people ultimately forgive you for that down the road. But, like, why deal with that if you're a new general manager? Pivot out and probably take your number 2.
Yeah, I want to find this question because somebody asked it earlier, and I can't. Yeah, I wish I remember who it was. It's actually kind of bothering me now. It was actually a really good question. So, but I got completely sideways at all of the news today and a puppy. And I've seen some idea of like either Mikal Bridges or Miles Bridges. Get the Bridges. Bridges is out of your head. I don't think there's a draft pick that would land you either one of those guys right now. Bridges in Phoenix is likely a defensive player of the year candidate going forward.
He just signed an extension. He's going nowhere,
A
folks.
cheap extension at that. Miles Bridges is going to get his rookie max.
Yeah.
The Hornets are clearing space to pay him.
Yeah,
I don't think there's
go
a
him, and they
world.
want to go Ball, and they're going to bring in the next coach, whoever that ends up being.
Still surprised they fired Borrego, but that's neither here nor there.
I mean, you cannot get waxed like that back-to-back years in the play-in. Like,
It's the Hornets. So
I know.
but Shaggy Swizz, do you feel Cronin did enough or anything to deserve 4 years? That's kind of the standard for executives now, whether you like it or not.
Again, this goes into the good faith organization doing what they can to take care of people. I don't see how it's in your. Okay.
Take this example. I know exactly where you're going. Yeah. Frank Vogel. They let him be a lame duck coach. They gave him a uno ichi year extension after winning an NBA title.
if Cronin had one bad year on a 2-year deal, like you're just making everything that much worse. I think.
When that happened, it was not all of the Russell Westbrook stuff that was like detrimental to this organization. I mean, that was awful. But the first domino to fall was the 1-year deal for Frank Vogel.
Yep.
You had coaches, you had agents, you had execs, you had people around the league going, he just won an NBA title. What the hell are you doing?
And then they fired him 2 seasons removed.
Like, that stuff was bad. Musa says, I just got here. Did they talk Nas yet? I debated whether or not I wanted to talk Nas because it's bad news.
It's a tough spot for the young man. He's such a good kid.
Press release.
I didn't know he was dealing with an abdomen injury. I hope he can get right. I don't blame some fans for feeling how they feel, and it's not his fault. Again, this is just bad luck. I hope he can stay healthy. It's a big season for him and his future. But right now in his very, very short young career, it's just been tough for him to stay healthy.
Snake bit is the phrase I would use. And this is the actual press release. Trailblazers forward Nasir Little underwent successful surgery today to repair a core muscle injury, which, if that sounds very similar to Damian Lillard, well, it is. Oh, there you go. You can hear little Tanner back there.
I think his surgery was done by the same doctor.
I believe so as well, because it's Dr. William C. Myers and the Institute in Philadelphia, which is where Damian Lillard had his done. So perhaps Nas, like this is not something I was aware of, like as far as like needing surgery. I knew he was nicked up, but not something like this. Perhaps they saw signs that this was similar to what Dame had, and they wanted to nip it in the bud now.
Right.
Because there have been guys like Kyle Lowry and Drew Holiday who had it much later, and they said that they were able to recover rather quickly. But let's go ahead and let's just kind of get the car into the shop here and make sure he's ready to go for the season, because he is going into, and I hope he's healthy for his own sake. I don't care about the Blazers side of the stuff, because he's going into his biggest earning years. He's going into his extension. I would be very surprised if the Blazers and him in his his representation came to an agreement before next season. I think they're going to let him go to RFA status at this point. I mean, same thing as Anfernee Simons.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily something you want, but like you can't blame the team, nor can you really blame him. Like you kind of have to get to a prove it year, and this is what this is going to be. He'll either earn the money, or he'll stay snake bitten, and I hope that isn't the case, because he seems like a good dude.
So it's something to track. Just kind of figure that out. Also, speaking of tracking, the Suns continue to just hammer the ever-living dog shit out of the Mavs tonight. Good Lord.
Yeah,
Both playoff games. Absolute stinkers, Sprague.
I thought Philly would contend a lot more just because Joel is that dude. It wasn't a Harden thing. It was a Joel thing. Unfortunately for him, he took a pretty big shot to the face. The Phoenix series, I didn't really buy the 2-2 tie. I thought it was weird and crazy that Paul had those games and that they tied it. I think this series is over. I think they're going to close them out in Dallas.
Listen, I'm glad the Mavs at least look competitive in this series, because they did not.
Right.
I will say that they definitely figured out one game for sure. Like, it was the Mavericks getting it done. They shot the lights out. I mean, to hit that many threes, was it 23 of 56, I think they were in that game?
Right.
Just a dumb amount of threes. That's winning a game. I don't think you're going to get back-to-back games of Chris Paul having 7 turnovers and a half and then fouling out in a game and also hit all those threes to win 2 more games.
Paul must always – he's had some stinkers in the postseason. Paul almost always responds. And he responded – well, he didn't really do that much tonight statistically, but he really kind of controlled what they were doing offensively, got 10 assists, and you had Devin Booker just go absolutely – nuclear in the third quarter to separate.
Booker and Ayton went nuts tonight. I mean, 11 of 20 and 9 of 13. They just
and Ayton is, to me, Ayton's the key here. Paul is important. He has a lot of value. I thought
Ayton was only 14 and 11 in the last couple games.
And I was going to say, I think that's why actually they lost those two as bad as Paul played. Like, Ayton asserts himself against this Dallas team. They have no answer for him.
So let's do that. Let's do some predictions real quick, then we'll get out of here.
Yeah.
I've got Phoenix winning the series now. You've got Phoenix winning the series?
Yeah, I think this is over. I think they're going to close them out in Dallas. 6 games.
I think so too. Unfortunately, John Morant is shut down for the rest of the playoffs. Bone bruise, whether or not it was Jordan Poole yanking on him or not. It's a major, major bummer. Do the Grizz get one more game, or is that their last?
No, that game's over. This series is over.
So we have Suns Grizz, Suns Warriors
Suns
in the Western Conference Finals. In the East, are you buying what the Celtics are selling, or are you sticking with the champ?
I absolutely buy what the Celtics are selling. I think you can make a real easy argument. They should be up 3-1. They let real bad opportunities get out of their hands in game 3, and Tatum played his worst possible game. They damn near tied it to go to overtime. Love me some Giannis, and everything I just said about Boston, while be true, I'm gonna put my faith more in Giannis.
There it is.
Well, look, I was watching this game, and I'm rooting for the Portland area guys to do well, like Pritchard and the coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
I found myself watching this game live, actually starting to get pissed and have like a rooting interest. I want Giannis to win. Yes.
Yeah. Cement the legacy. Be that dude. Like
go get 2 chips. Like going into next year, I'm tired of these dumb conversations of who's the best player. It's like it's not
not LeBron anymore. It's Giannis. It's not Jokic.
LeBron. It's not
Embiid.
KD. Yeah, like Jokic, great year MVP. Embiid is amazing. It's Giannis.
Cool. Giannis is a single man, winning machine.
Yeah.
That's. I hope the Bucks win the series. I'm picking the Bucks to win the series. I really need Middleton to get back next series.
6 or 7.
I think the Bucks are going to win this in 6.
What's weird is I walked away from that game and I'm like, God, that was an impressive fourth quarter by Boston. I think the Bucks can win this in 6.
It's again, I think it's the Giannis factor. It's the best player on the floor, best player on the planet.
I think they can win the next. I think this is for the Eastern Conference, personally, this matchup.
Yeah, I don't know if Miami's going to get healthy enough to handle either of those teams coming out of that series.
And I'll say this, even if they don't have Middleton, which it sounds like they will, but if they did and they face Miami, I'm still taking the Bucks to win that series.
Yeah, and as somebody had a meme of the Celtics taking on like being physical with Kevin Durant and the Nets, and I think it was Buff Doge, and it's the Buff Dog, and then they had like the little scrawny dog of the Boston Celtics trying to be physical with Giannis. And I was like, yeah, no, trying to take on the 7-foot 270-pound Giannis is a little bit different than the 7-foot 210-pound Kevin Durant. Like you limp away from Giannis contact. You don't do that with KD. So you're picking. Winner of this series basically goes to the NBA Finals from the East. Who are you taking out of the West?
I'm going to take Golden State. I picked Golden State before the playoffs started. I don't trust Phoenix. There's something weird about them.
You don't trust that team. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this could age like absolute milk in the dead of summer, but I don't know. I feel more nervous in a pivotal moment going against Steph and that team than I do the Phoenix Suns, and that might be fool's gold, and Devin Booker's going to make me eat my words. But even with the matchup problem that Ayton provides, I kind of just like Golden State. I like the way they're playing. I think there's an outside shot, a very outside shot, that if that series went the distance, they could get GB back at the end of it, because they did say if he returns, it'd be near the finals. So maybe there's an outside shot. And I just think it's tough. And also Clay. Maybe Clay is just going to have a tough year. But I think
he's just not the guy he was anymore.
I don't think he is either, but maybe it's also his first year back.
It does take a while to come back from one of those injuries, let alone both.
That dude just needs to hit a couple shots, and he could be right back to having Clay-like impact. And so I'm going to take Golden State to get to the finals, and I hope that this prediction's right, because I actually don't think there's a better matchup for the league. In terms of
it would elevate Giannis's position too.
100% it would. So you'd have Giannis against Golden State. That would be so much fun.
I am going to go blasphemous and say that the team that I don't trust is the Warriors.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
As great as Steph is, and he is great. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, likely a top 12 player of all time. He has not been that dude in these games. It has been Jordan Poole who has saved them a ton. It has been Draymond saving them a ton. Steph has been phenomenal in fourth quarters. The other 3 quarters, he has been not great.
They had an awful shooting performance in that last game. Like the fact that they won it was amazing.
Steph has not been good.
Yeah.
He's been great in fourth quarters, but I think the Grizzlies are too young and too not perfectly built yet. They don't have enough shooting. They need less Dylan Brooks, more Desmond Bane.
Well, they also don't have Ja the rest of the playoffs. So like,
But I mean, even with Ja, they're still missing just one real thing. Like I think Desmond Bane would be a phenomenal third best player on a team. I think Jaren Jackson would be like the perfect role playing big who can have all-star caliber nights. But I still think they need a guy, a shot creator on that team to really, really elevate them. Whereas the Suns don't have that flaw.
Yeah.
And I think that can expose them a little bit against the Warriors in that you can't really scheme them away. You can't be like, we're going to throw a small ball lineup in. Oh, okay, cool. We're going to keep our 7-footer who shoots 70% at the rim on the floor for this.
Right.
And you guard that every possession down the court, Draymond. You tag that roll man every single time down the floor, Otto Porter. And I just like, they're a little less scheme resistant to what the Warriors want to do. Mm-hmm. And I'm not necessarily picking against them as much as I am picking the Suns.
The Suns have been a great team. When I say I don't trust them, I'm nitpicking at most.
Yeah, I think we're nitpicking each side of this.
Yeah, because they're both really good teams, and this was clearly the matchup I think all year in the West, based on how the way the seeding ended up being, mm-hmm. and the way this kind of whole thing broke down. And I know Memphis was the home team in this series, but I think overall most people watched the NBA this year. They knew that it was Golden State. They knew it was Phoenix. So I think we'd be getting a real treat, and you get Chris Paul, like. You know, how many more years of prime Chris Paul is going to have versus Steph again in his way? Like
to have that chance and to win it.
I mean,
that would be a hell of a way for CP to go.
Look, Boston could beat Milwaukee. I don't want to dispel that, but or put that aside as if it can't happen. Those would be amazing matchups. Miami, Milwaukee, Golden State, Phoenix. Like
yes.
And I think Boston would also be a great matchup. But again, I think the Eastern Conference champion is coming out of that series.
So you're picking whoever wins.
Doesn't matter. Don't give a crap. Don't care who they play either.
Do you think do you think Boston and Milwaukee both win a matchup against Phoenix or Golden State? Interesting.
Yeah, I do actually. I really like the East to win it because Milwaukee would have gotten Middleton back. And he's gotten a lot of rest. And then Golden State, although I really like them and their odds to get to the finals, even against Phoenix, man, I just think these are the two best teams. When I've watched all the playoffs, it's been Milwaukee and Boston for me that have stuck out a little more than others. You know, I know Phoenix dealt with some injuries, but the struggle a little bit against Alvarado and the Pelicans, and then allowing the series to go at least 6 or more, depending on what Luka does in Game 6. Yeah, there's just elements of that I'm kind of like, I think Boston's legit, and I think Milwaukee, I mean, you got the best player in the world, so you should be favored.
Anton says, I want to see Draymond Green versus Giannis.
It'd be awesome. Giannis would foul him out, by the way.
Yeah,
and he would.
Giannis fouls out everybody, so
yes.
It is what it is. And I think you would also get a lot of the post-series podcast from Draymond Green talking about Giannis, win, lose, or draw.
Oh, yeah.
Because Dre's going to go up there and keep it real. He is not going to James Harden that thing, be like, I wish I was 7 foot tall and could just dunk everything. He's going to go up there no matter what and sing Giannis's praises. He is that dude. You were not paying enough attention. You were not giving him enough flowers. Because Dre's the real. Like, that's just how it goes. That would be pretty cool. I'm not going to lie. But I do want to see CP get a chance again. I do.
Yeah, and I'm one of those sick individuals that I don't care if he gets the title. Doesn't impact me at all. If he doesn't, I'm gonna go, yeah, really good player.
I don't want to see him get the John Stockton treatment, but we'll wrap it up there. We will be back. Brandon is heading out of town for a couple of days. I am trying to schedule some guests post-lottery because everybody's big boards, their draft boards are going to change. Like we had Ricky O'Donnell on last week, and one of the things we said, hey, Ricky, you're going to change your draft board. He's like, I may very well one now, but I'm probably going to wait until after the lottery just to kind of
for sure.
have an understanding. We do also have, we're talking about it right now, we do have the list of players. Once the lottery is set, the combine is next. So that week is lottery combine. Combine is the 22nd. We will have... I know folks, I should say, who are going to be at the combine. I will see if we can get them on the show during that time period to get an understanding of kind of what guys are talking about, how guys look at the combine. We will have access to the numbers. We will hit a draft lottery live watch party, and we will do a live show around the combine. What's interesting is all the big names will be at the combine. Paolo will be there. Chet will be there. Jabari will be there. If you look at the list, this is the first time in a long time everybody is going to be there. The other part of this is workouts are starting to happen. So we will start getting guys into Portland soon. It's going to be interesting to see how the Trailblazers handle this stuff. Do they keep it very quiet, or do they open it up a little bit more and allow questions? Because back in the earlier days, they were open as far as having reporters in and asking questions.
I interviewed Mo Harkless. He came in for a draft workout out of St. John's, and I remember thinking, oh, this could be a good pick for Portland, 6'8" wing. And he ended up going to Orlando, and then like somehow makes his way back to Portland. I'm like, hey, how about that?
But let's see what happens. Let's see if we have a little bit of access to those guys as they're coming around. So I think that'll be a ton of fun and just kind of see where things end up. I will bring a schedule around once we start locking things in. The one thing you can lock in right now is the draft lottery watch party. That will happen. We will have that open to members and non-members alike. We will also have some Eastern and Western Conference watch parties coming up once we have that in. So first of all, thank you all for being here. Thank you all for sticking with us. We appreciate you. We love you. Brandon and I, we said after the season we're going to take a little bit of a break. We are now ramping up. You will get at least 2 shows a week from now until the doldrums of August. We'll have some content at Summer League if they draft there. We will also have the NBA draft lottery, workouts, all the stuff in between, and we will try to bring as much draft coverage and trade coverage as we possibly can leading up to draft night. If you haven't already, like, rate, review, subscribe. Help us grow the show. If you're new here, please click subscribe. It's free. It's easy. It helps us grow the show. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can email the show, jackramses@gmail.com. You can also DM me on Twitter, @DannyMarang, @Brandon Sprague. Brandon will just send it to me anyway, so just DM it to me. Also, Jack Ramses on Twitter and Instagram. So I think I covered it all. That's everything, right?
I think that's everything.
All right. Well, Brandon's going to hop out of town for a little while. I will try to book some guys post draft lottery. When we have the open party, I may have a couple guys from Blazers Edge come in. Steve DeWald is an NBA draft guy. We might have him come and sit in, just kind of get an idea. He's done a bunch of draft profiles already at Blazers Edge. And then we will kind of go from there. Yes, it's the fun. Content. #content is being cranked out. I will be back. Once I get stuff locked in, I will also start dropping out the player reviews from last season. I will kind of do from the back of the roster forward what they were, how they turned out, and how it all kind of comes together. Marcus Lake's rat's almost over. Yeah, we're wrapping up right now, Marcus. So, but you can watch us on the replay, and I will drop this in the podcast feed, and you can have it available here in probably a couple hours. So, again, thank you all so very much. We appreciate you. We love you. We will catch you, if not for Sunday. You're back on Saturday or Sunday?
I'm not back till late Sunday.
Okay, so we'll do the draft lottery.
We'll have the draft lottery.
I couldn't remember. I'm like, and I think he's coming back. I can't remember. So then we will have the draft lottery. We'll probably kick it off by about an hour before the draft lottery. Come in and kind of hang out,
shoot the shit, talk about how we're feeling. Then, crawl under our desks and get our safe spaces ready.
Get your lucky T-shirt. Put your underwear on backwards.
Exactly.
Whatever it is you do, do all of those things. We will have it there. If the Blazers win the lottery, I'll give something away. It'll be cool. Like I'll pull one of the autographed jerseys out or something.
There you go.
I've got plenty of stuff to give away, so that'll be the incentive, and I'll do it the same way I did last time. We'll give it to one of the members with the Batum jersey. So again, thank you all so very much. We appreciate you. We'll catch you for the NBA Draft Lottery. For Brandon, I'm Danny. Take care, y'all. Talk soon. Bye.